All right. Well, let me bring this. Let me bring the right thing up here. That's a little weird. I guess you got the pretty kiss face there going on. All right.
Oh,
Welcome everybody to this live episode of Strong Style. We are going to talk about Eddie Guerrero versus Rey Mysterio from 1997's Halloween Havoc on WCW. We're also going to get into a Dark Side of the Ring review on that Dr. D. David Schultz episode from last week, the Slap Heard Round the World. That was one of my favorite episodes we've watched this season on Dark Side of the Ring, and it was great to be reminded of Dr. D because it had been quite some time since I thought about Dr. D. But I am the outlaw John Rocha. I'm not Dr. D. I'm the outlaw John Rocha, and I'm joined as always every time on Strong Style by my co-host down there in Orlando, holding it down, Aaron Turner. How are you, man?
good, man. I'm not a doctor, but I did stay in a Holiday Inn Express last night. But
Nice.
yes, can't wait to talk about it. The matches that we usually bring up on Strong Style, like I've seen and I've watched it recently. This one was a while back for me, and I've watched it 3 times.
Wow.
This week, and I'm so ready to talk about this match. But damn, that's all I gotta say about this week.
Absolutely. And I can't thank all of you for joining us right now. I see Sean Barreto, Haskell 420, Felix Nolasco in the chat right now. If it gets to be too loud behind me, I'll probably stand up and close the windows. They're doing some work in the alley. But hey, I said that we're going to go live at 2 o'clock, and we are live at 2 o'clock to talk about this match and have a little fun with it. This is 1997. This is 20 years. How long is this? Like 23 years ago. Pretty incredible stuff. So we're going to talk about that. And I said Dark Side of the Ring, and then we'll get into a little bit of wrestling news as well. But you look at this situation here, Aaron. Let's jump into it now. I mean, these guys have such a legacy and a legendary careers in the ring, both as luchadors. I'm wearing my Lucha Revolution shirt, and also as wrestlers. In the mainstream area of WWE and WCW, WWF, whatever you want to call it. And they made their bones working their way up in the rankings. Had to get that kind of respect put on their names to get to this position. And the overall story of this match is basically flies in the face of lucha tradition. You don't take the mask off a luchador, and this is a mask match where Rey and Eddie are fighting so that Eddie can take Rey's mask off. And apparently Rey had fought in 8 previous mask matches and had won them all, and he was up for this 9th mask match against Eddie Guerrero.
Apparently, all it takes to get Rey Mysterio's mask off is Eric Bischoff saying, "Take your mask off, or I'm firing you." So I guess that's how you get Rey Mysterio's mask off.
True,
but I want to talk a little bit about the history of these guys before we get into the match. I condensed it down. This is obviously not the biggest version of their biographies. You could go on for days and days about their accomplishments and how great they are. But let's start with the Eddie Guerrero side. Let's start with the Guerrero wrestling family.
Yeah.
You have Gory Guerrero, the patriarch of the family, the head of the family. Then you have his sons, Hector, Chavo Sr., or Chavo Classic, if you're a SmackDown fan from 09 to 12.
Right.
Mondo Guerrero, and of course the youngest, Eddie Guerrero.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about him. His grandson and granddaughter, Chavo Jr., as you would see in the WWE and WCW. And then Shaw Guerrero, who had a short stint in NXT, but is the daughter of Eddie and Vicky Guerrero.
Wow. Okay.
So, yeah, absolutely. She is currently married to WWE star Aiden English. So there's a little tidbit for you. But Eddie Guerrero performed under a mask. Oddly enough, we're talking about a mask match here as Black Tiger in New Japan Pro Wrestling, taking on future friends and rivals like the Pegasus Kid, aka Chris Benoit, Chris Jericho. Brian Pillman even, and a couple others there in New Japan. Eddie also had a short stint in ECW before coming over to World Championship Wrestling, having one of the company's best matches in their entire history. He was there not very long, guys, a couple months maybe, against Dean Malenko.
Oh, the Iceman.
Of course, Eddie, exactly. And Eddie was signed to the company WCW in 1995, so a long time ago. Brief history on Rey Mysterio Jr., he made his pro debut in 1989 at the age of 14.
Oof, 14.
John, what were you doing at 14?
I wasn't in a ring, that's for sure. I was trying to figure out how to not look like an absolute and total nerd and maybe get a date with a girl in high school.
I was still playing with wrestling figures. Moving on, he was given the name. He was given the name Mysterio from his uncle Rey Misterio Sr. in 1991.
Mhm.
He also had a short stint in ECW, just like Eddie, debuting in another outstanding match with longtime rival Psychosis in a Mexican death match. And Mysterio moved over to WCW in 1996. So he was a part of this crop. Him and Eddie both were a part of this crop of wrestlers that came over from ECW, that came over from Japan, Mexico, AAA, CMLL, whatever you want to call it. These Lucha Libre, these smaller guys, to get these ratings pops, because you would start off, the way it would go, you would start off a pay-per-view or a Monday Nitro with a hot match. It'd be Jericho versus Ultimo Dragon. And it would get the crowd pumped for whatever happened next. And they were so hard to follow that the Cruiserweights got over.
Yeah.
As a result of it, we saw Chris Jericho break out of it. Eddie Guerrero for sure broke out. Benoit as well broke out of that division.
Yeah.
And Rey Mysterio, two of the most popular dudes in the entire division. What do you remember about that in WCW?
I remember that I was one of these guys that like 205 Live gets sometimes. I was one of these guys that was like, I don't want to see the small dudes fighting. Show me the stars. I remember that. And then you had to sit through it, because back then you couldn't fast forward necessarily unless you put it on tape and then watched it later. You had to watch it as it was happening. So I remember watching that and then getting super impressed by all the smaller competitors, for lack of a better term, like Benoit, like Jericho, like Rey Mysterio, like Eddie, Kidman, all these cruiserweights that came through. I truly believe that cruiserweight division is one of the most amazing collection of wrestlers ever in the history of any federation. Such talent, always delivered, almost always solid matches. Yeah, were there occasional trip ups or missed spots? Or sure, but they were doing such death-defying stuff that you were okay with it. You were okay with it because the overall quality of the matches, more often than not, were just exceptional to enjoy. And so that opened my eyes more into the other side of wrestling. Because look, in the original 80s, there weren't that many small dudes that were crossing over, right? It was even the mid-carders were just guys that weren't as big as Hogan or as big as Piper or even Savage to a degree. They weren't smaller people necessarily. This is the first time where I started to get introduced to this idea of the smaller wrestler, and then by extension, the luchador wrestlers, which I didn't know about at all either, and had to do research on and understand what luchador was. Obviously, I knew the term, but I didn't know what luchador wrestling was.
Well, I mean, it was really a conception or an idea that Paul Heyman had in ECW, and Eric Bischoff just ended up stealing it.
Yeah.
Eric Bischoff gets a lot of credit for bringing in the luchadors to WCW, which he certainly did, but it was a Paul Heyman idea first and foremost. So we got to give credit where credit is due.
Right.
I did want to ask you real quick another question. Out of all these luchadors, your Juventutes, your Psychosis, Rey Mysterio, Eddie Guerrero, Chavo, who's your favorite? Who's your favorite all? You got to have a favorite.
That's tough. Because it's tough to say Eddie, because Eddie is the standard favorite, and Eddie crossed over and won world heavyweight titles. So that's tough. Ray crossed over. Ray's still doing it and won world heavyweight titles. So I don't want to necessarily be in that camp, because those are the two easiest camps to choose. Jushin Thunder Liger, I liked him. I was a big fan of him. Parka, I loved Parka with the chair. Parka was fantastic. Parka was, I just love the way he did everything. It was just great style overall. And you can't deny Jericho. You can't deny Benoit. There's so many great wrestlers that crossed over and won the major titles that it's tough to figure out a favorite. So I'd have to go with either Parka or Jushin Thunder Liger. I loved both those guys and enjoyed their way. And you can even throw the Great Muta in there, to be honest with you, and you're not out of the realm of those cruiserweights. So there were so many great ones. It's tough to find a favorite, though. What about for you?
You play those video games, and I would always play as like Rey Mysterio, because I loved the different costumes that he had, like comic book and stuff. Via the Spider-Man, in this match he had the Phantom, which is like a huge, big time nostalgic for me, because that's like my favorite Rey Mysterio gear. But I was always a big fan of the Ultimo Dragon.
Oh, the Ultimo Dragon.
Yeah, I love the Ultimo Dragon, because he didn't speak English that well, and he reminded me, I don't know why, but he reminded me of the Shredder a little bit. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. He had kind of that look, and dude, I loved him so much, and he would always have great matches with Chris Jericho. Anybody you would put him in there with Ultimo Dragon was a killer, and I loved him, and I still love him to this day. I have an Ultimo Dragon mask somewhere. We're in the process of moving, so this room's just a bunch of boxes right now.
Right.
But I loved watching the Ultimo Dragon. I love La Parka. I love the chairman. I love that whole gimmick.
It's great.
They're all good, man. Like my best friend, Zach, his favorite was always Juventud Guerrero. He loved Juventud Guerrero. The Hoovy juice.
Yeah, the Hoovy
loved
juice.
him, man. Like with the mask, without the mask, doesn't matter. Like, loved Juventud Guerrero. These guys are so good, and they went on to do a little mix of things. Like they were never really hit that height after this, with the exception of course, like a handful maybe.
Right.
Your La Parkas went on to do stuff in Mexico and other places, but Juventud never really got there. Psychosis really never got there anymore. And that's a shame because these guys were great performers. Yeah,
we just did that watch along as a random thing on my channel last Sunday morning, and we watched we watched Bash at the Beach from 1998. Juventud Guerrera's match in that is incredible. I think he fights Eddie. Eddie's fighting Chavo. I think he fights Benoit. And those, not Benoit, sorry, Jericho. And that match is incredible. The back and forth that they go through. And Juventud Guerrera doesn't miss a beat. It's one of the best matches of that pay-per-view. He's fantastic. And so, yeah, you're right. So many of them don't cross over, but it isn't because of a lack of talent or a lack of skill or a lack of ability. Could be character, could be booking, could be storylines, could be any number of things. Could be their desire that they feel more in tune with what's going on in Mexico than they do what's going on in the States. So they prefer to go wrestle there. There's all number of reasons why they didn't cross over, but you can never doubt the talent of this entire cruiserweight division at this time.
Yeah, that's the real shame of it. That's what Rey Mysterio. I remember watching the Monday Night War documentary, and they were talking about one of the reasons that WCW went under was they didn't want to build new stars.
Right.
Like, yeah, they had Chris Benoit, who was a star. He was the world champion. But after that, I mean, you had Eddie, who didn't really rise to anything in WCW. Then you had Malenko, who didn't really rise to anything. Saturn, who was in Raven's flock, but never really did anything. So, with the exception of one guy that got over, that got to be world champion, they didn't do anything. Yeah, and that again is another nail in the coffin of WCW, where some of these guys, like, I'm sorry, dude, but like Hulk Hogan and Macho Man Randy Savage and Roddy Piper, they would keep these other guys down because they were getting paid. And that's why, Chris Jericho left. That's why the Giant left. That's why the Radicals, Eddie and Perry and Malenko and Benoit all left to go kick WCW's ass on the other side because they weren't going to get over and they were not going to get these opportunities. Yeah, good point. Someone said don't sleep on Chris Kanyon. Someone gave it, Blackie Chan gave him a little bit of love. Oh, who better?
To Chris Kanyon. So
who better than Kanyon?
I respect that. Real quick, we had a super chat come through. That was from J-Dog. What's up, J-Dog? He's up there in New England. He said, guys, did you see the Becky Lynch cameo on Billions? Yes, I saw it.
How was it? I haven't watched Billions yet. It's on my list of things I need to get to. So
listen, don't tell me you're going to be on a show and then you're just playing yourself. She's playing herself. She is Becky Lynch being Becky Lynch in the show.
That's whack. I was like, that's whack.
I thought it was going to be like an actual character, and I'm like, okay, let's see what she can do here. We've seen men cross over with Batista and Cena and The Rock, obviously. Let's see what she can do if they give her a real character. No, she's playing Becky Lynch. She gets into an altercation at the beginning of the show, but it's a swerve because it's been a planned altercation, and all she does is deliver a rah-rah speech to the people who work there, and they all overact the shit out of her speech. And I don't mean her. She's great doing her thing because it's Becky. She's cutting a promo, but everyone around them acts like she's talking, like she's Lincoln delivering the Gettysburg Address. They all just go way too far in their reaction to it. So it kills the cameo. She did a nice job. She's playing herself, but everyone was like, when she's done, they're like, oh my God, yes. And you're just like, what is wrong with you fools? Who told you to act like that? So overall, I thought the cameo was wasted, unfortunately, but props to Becky Lynch for doing it and nailing it herself, but everyone else around her, not so much. So that's my thoughts on it.
I do love Maggie Stiff. I just haven't got to it yet.
Oh yeah, fair enough. All right. Sorry. Let me adjust my pants real quick. All right, here we go. Okay. Who else? Juventud Guerrera is su papa es Fuerza Guerrera. All right, fair enough. Roberto also says, I heard Juventud, had a nasty attitude, and that's what kept him from rising to Ray's level. Well, we shall see.
It's a shame.
Yeah. Anyway, guys, the super chats are open. The Streamlabs are open. We're going to be talking for about an hour here live on the show. So if you want to send in some questions you want us to answer or go through, please feel free. We love doing it. We love hearing from you guys, and we love seeing what you guys want to know from us. But anyway, so giving us any more background we need to go through here on both of these guys, Aaron, before we get into the match?
Talk to the build of this match for a little bit. Eddie had been going around. He was a heel at this time.
Yes.
And Mike Tenay mentioned it a little bit in the match that Eddie was going around and trying to really dishonor these luchadors. He was trying to rip their masks off and get rid of the legacy of Lucha Libre. And that's what he did. He did it to Rey in a couple weeks, tried to get his mask off. Finally did once, but Rey quickly covered his face. So no one got to see who he was. He looks like a giant baby if you don't know. And of course, that's the luchador tradition. That's a complete dishonor by making a luchador take off his mask. Hence, the stage was set for Halloween Havoc, where we have Eddie Guerrero defending the Cruiserweight title against Rey. And if Rey would lose, he would have to take off his mask, which of course would dishonor his whole entire family. So, I mean, the stakes were high here.
Yeah.
And, you could have seen giant baby Rey Mysterio a couple years before they made him take his mask off before.
Well, I remember all of this happening. I remember because this is still the heyday of the NWO. Because on this pay-per-view, I think Hogan fights on this pay-per-view, or somebody fights on this pay-per-view from the NWO.
Yeah.
So this is still the heyday of the NWO. So I was watching all of this stuff. I remember Eddie going in and trying to rip off masks. I didn't know that was a big deal, right? Until they said it was a big deal in the luchador tradition. Because again, I didn't know that much about the luchador tradition when I got into pro wrestling. What I knew was the 80s stuff. And there were no luchadors in the 80s in America, at least in the WWF at the time. So to me, this was a whole new thing. So Eddie going around. And by the way, this occurred to me as I was watching the match. I want to throw it in because I think it makes sense here. People sleep on how great of a heel Eddie was. Like people talk about Piper, people talk about other great heels in the history of wrestling. Eddie was one of the best, if not top 5 best heels to ever do it, because it was always unique. It was always, he always relished being hated by the crowd. And he was so good at what he did that you hated him for being that good at what he did. They comment on it on the match. Now, I know we'll get into the match in just a second, but they comment about Eddie's physique at the time and that he's one of the most ripped wrestlers at the time in fantastic shape. By the way, he's nowhere near as big as he's going to get in the WWE, but he is big, still big for a luchador wrestler, top heavy, certainly. But his moves are incredible. But the way he plays with the audience, and this is really important. People talk about heels all the time. You got to know how to work that audience, to work them into just a frenzy, and he does such a great job with it.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Like the first thing that I noticed when you're talking about that great heel work is when he comes down to the ring and gets in the ring. Normally a guy, even a heel, will go up to the turnbuckle and they'll put their arms up or they'll do something. Eddie just stood on the rope, just looking at people like, I'm better than all of you, and I don't know why I'm here. I have to beat this kid up for some reason. And he just looks like he would rather be anywhere else, just like so pissed off that he even has to have this match. So I definitely hear you there. And you see it that's such a big part of this match, which, people may not think of right away. Eddie works this so well, so heel. They tell such a great story in this from, Mysterio being the smaller guy and fighting underneath to Eddie just at a moment's notice when you think Rey's getting the advantage, just, backbreaker, power bomb, sidewalk slam, like whatever. Eddie in a second can take over the match, and that's what made it so good.
Yeah, it's a super brutal match in terms of Eddie's moves. And what helps Eddie is the quickness with which he delivers these ferocious moves. And that speaks to Eddie's strength. I think Eddie could do that and still take care of the other wrestler without hurting them because he was so strong. He could hold their momentum and guide their momentum with the moves that he was pulling. I'm not saying he always got it right, but I'm saying you can tell that he does these quick moves and then holds them in a position and then drops them. Even when he catches them on a reverse, he will hold them and then drop them. So it keeps their momentum from causing too much damage. But by the same token, Rey is thinner. Rey is also thinner in 1997 in this, and he is flying all over the place with some incredible moves. I mean, that DDT, that flip DDT off the rope is one of the most phenomenal things I've ever seen. And then what he does outside when he flips over outside and then does the move on the outside of the ring as well. Two of the most incredible moves I've ever seen in a luchador or in any kind of match.
Well, even Bobby Heenan says, he's like, I've never seen anything like that before.
Yeah.
And then Tony Schiavone says, that might be the best move I've ever seen. That might be the best move of the year.
Yeah,
and they would be right, because that was friggin' amazing watching that. Like, it's kind of hard for me to get excited about something I've seen before, but it popped me so hard. Like when I saw that, I was like, oh God, like it was so good. And then I do want to make I want to go back to one quick point you made when you're talking about Eddie and how he would, his quickness. Like there's one point where Mysterio is doing a back handspring at Eddie and he missed him. He completely missed where they were going. Yeah. I think they were going for Ray to land on Eddie's shoulders, but he kind of got him on the right-hand side, and Eddie, instead of just dropping him, picked him up and guided him backwards, which helped Ray not break his.
Exactly. And then
so that was another good thing. And there's a couple moments in that match where Ray overshoots it and Eddie just kind of cradles him to the ground. Which is,
it's interesting. Do you think Ray was just like too hyped up in this situation? Because I do think Eddie is the better wrestler in this match, the more composed wrestler in this match. You see Ray kind of miss a couple of spots or miss a few spots. Do you sense that maybe Ray was a little too excited to have this match with Eddie? I mean, this is still Ray 20 some years ago. So I mean, he's not the wrestler he is now, the more accomplished, relaxed veteran wrestler he is now. He's still a young kid trying to prove himself in every one of his matches. Do you think he got a little too excitable in this match?
I think he could have been, but I mean, mistakes happen, especially in a match like this where you're trying to hit such precise marks and not overshoot anybody. It's just something that happens. I mean, we saw it last week in the Kevin Steen and El Generico match where, you're just off by a half an inch and it just kind of looks weird. And depending on how good the person is that's working with you, it can either be, fine and not a big deal, or you break a damn neck pretty quickly. But luckily for Ray in this instance. But I do see what you're saying. He does seem a little bit more erratic. Yeah. But back then, that was the Mysterio Jr. style, man. That's why people loved him. Yeah. And something else I noticed in this match was that Ray is really using his body like a battering ram. Like at one point, I think it's Schiavone or maybe Dusty Rhodes that says like, he's a small guy, so when he does a lateral press, when he's chest to chest, he's got to do a lot more to keep Eddie Guerrero down. And there's at one point where he does that corkscrew where he's where Eddie Guerrero is standing, he does that corkscrew into his chest. Yep. And he's like, it's almost like a headbutt. I was like, this is like, that was one of the most beautiful sequences I had seen in a long time. And just damn, man, like every time Ray would go up to the rope, I was like, something awesome is going to happen. And 9 times out of 10 that it did. Yeah. So I mean, these guys, wow. And the near fall when Rey Mysterio hit the Hurricane and got the really close to, that's when I think the crowd got hooked. Yeah. Because you could see the crowd, like, there was points where they were chain wrestling and people were like, I don't know about this. And then Rey Mysterio hit that DDT and they were up. And then when Rey Mysterio got that close to, they were up. And then when Eddie Guerrero does the baseball slide and misses, they got up for it, man. This is the kind of match that you want to really set off your pay-per-view.
Yeah, that baseball slide into the, I mean, it was, and then of course you put it in the notes, but it was great to hear Bobby saying it's not the slide that kills you, it's the sudden stop. And I'd never seen, I don't know how many wrestlers have ever done that move, but I can count on my hand how many times I've ever seen it in a match where the wrestler will purposely move or purposely miss the rest of the slide, his private area into the post there. And I thought it was a brilliant timing. I thought the timing of it was brilliant, and brilliant timing in the match for that, to pull that move off, when the momentum seems to be shifting towards Eddie, to all of a sudden have that move happen. It was perfect timing. And again, they're telling a great story in the ring, the back and forth. Mysterio only gets so much offense, and then Eddie takes over for a few minutes, and then Mysterio gets about a minute and a half of offense, and then Eddie takes over for a few minutes. So it's a good balance, because you want the heel to be built up so that it seems like an insurmountable mountain or insurmountable odds for the face to come back. And Ray does eventually, but Eddie almost rips the mask off by himself.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't really care for that part of it. I hate it when they do that, like, because these masks are so damn cool, and especially that outfit that Rey Mysterio had on. I was like, dude, I'll buy that mask. Like, don't rip it apart. I love this. But yeah, really need to know what Rey Mysterio looks like under a mask, you can Google it. It's nothing special. Like I said, he looks like a giant baby. But yeah, just the way that Eddie, that's just such a heel dick move to do something like that. Is trying to rip his mask off. And then, there was a part of the match that I just, we talked last week about El Generico was so tired that he climbed back on the ring apron and just fell off.
Yeah.
Like it was just a little touch that made that match so much better. And then in this match, Eddie has Ray close to the ropes, and instead of like Ray like reaching back to grab the rope, Eddie like slides his body to block Ray from getting to the rope, and even puts his leg on it.
Yeah,
and it's just so cool, like that little touch. Like he thought enough to maneuver his body to block Ray from possibly getting the rope.
Yeah,
and damn, man, come on, it's Eddie Guerrero. Like, of course he would think to do something like that no one else would think to do. It's just that little thing that makes it so much better.
I mean, Eddie is one of the best. Someone said Rey Mysterio was great. Rey Mysterio was good, man. Certainly one of the greats, certainly. But I put Eddie above Ray, and I'll tell you for one main reason. I think skills-wise, these guys are absolutely comparable and equal in every way, shape, or form. They have two different styles of wrestling, but their skills are equal in terms of quality. I just think Ray's acting skills in the storylines puts him above. I'm sorry, Eddie's acting skills in the storylines puts him above Ray. Ray was good on the mic. He was okay on the mic. But Eddie was, the Mamacita storyline alone is one of the greatest ones you'll ever see. The way he plays in the sketches when they give him a chance to do storylines, Eddie is incredible. And so that's why, I think Ryan Satt and I would battle all the time about Rey Mysterio, whether he's one of the top 10 wrestlers ever. I put Eddie over Ray, in my opinion. I would put him higher above in that overall as in his career and his abilities in pro wrestling, which is also storylines and acting. So I have to put Eddie above Ray. What about you?
I can't disagree with you there. I think that's the right call. The thing about Eddie and Ray, like if you want to compare and contrast, is Eddie Guerrero makes every move look easy as hell.
Yeah.
Like he makes it look like you could do it, I could do it, my grandma could do it. And that is a real storyteller. That speaks a lot to ability. Someone that I took for granted for a long time until recently is Randy Orton.
Oh yeah.
And the reason that I think I did is because Randy makes it look so easy. He's so seamless. Everything looks good. Everything looks like it hurts. It's perfectly done. I think Eddie's the same way. I think Eddie's better than Randy, of course. Right. But yeah, I agree with you there. Like Rey Mysterio does some amazing, great moves that look absolutely stunning and make your jaw drop. Yeah. But Eddie Guerrero is the kind of guy that could put on a match to make you cry. Yeah. And that's just the difference between the two. And sometimes he did make people cry. I mean, we talk about his world title win made a lot of people cry.
Yes, absolutely. But I also think how many people come into the business and go, Rey Mysterio really influenced me. The main you hear is Eddie. You hear a lot of Eddie. Like Sasha credits Eddie, Bailey credits Eddie. A lot of people credit Eddie for inspiring them to pursue professional wrestling, and so I think that has to be working in his corner. Not that people aren't inspired by Ray, I'm sure they were, but the stars aren't as vocal about it as they seem to be about Eddie in that way.
Just a quick note, Io Shirai, of course, one of the greatest performers in the world in NXT, does coin her style after Rey Mysterio. She's a huge Rey Mysterio mark. When she used to wear the mask to the ring, that was in honor of Rey Mysterio. I just want to put that one out there. Of course, everybody inspired by Eddie Guerrero. Of course, Sasha Banks, like you said, Peyton Royce. I mean,
Peyton Royce,
people have worn Eddie tribute gear. I mean, come on. How can you be a wrestler and not be inspired by another great wrestler? I mean, come on now. But
true.
But yeah, Rey Mysterio has inspired quite a few people as well. Not me, because I can't fly like that. But but I mean, how can you not love the style of these guys?
Fox FS1 has been here in LA. I don't know if they're doing it across the country, but they've been doing the best of the WWE. They've been with these 1 hour shows, and it's been great. Like I saw the Becky Lynch one, which was fun to revisit some of her matches before. What I feel now, it's a bit like John Cena now with her, so it bothers me a little bit. But it was nice to go back and enjoy her matches that kind of got her there, right? It was great to see the Ric Flair match for the Ric Flair matches from the WWE. And you talk about Randy Orton. They showed that Rock and Sock connection versus Evolution, and you forget how good, even at a young age, Randy Orton was, and you get to enjoy that. But you also can watch the influences of these wrestlers from other wrestlers and their moves or their homages or whatever. So that's been fun to revisit in these things. I don't know if you've had a chance to watch any of these, but they've been fantastic. The hosts, I'm a little jealous of the hosts. I think I could have hosted some of these, but that being said, I think overall they do the matches they pick are great.
Who's the host? I'm sorry, I haven't been watching.
Oh, it's a couple of young guys in their late 20s or early 30s. I think it's a dude with a white dude with his hair combed over and a beard, and then another white dude with brunette hair. So I just look at them and I go, where was the audition for that? I should have had a shot at that.
I don't like them. I don't care for them. Not my cup of tea. Sorry, it doesn't really do. Why isn't Booker T or Renee Young?
No, it's not any of those people. No, it's not any wrestlers who are hosting.
What are we doing? What are we doing here? What are we paying these people for?
Well, that's what WWE does. They like it if you're not an addict to their product. That's a big thing for a lot of the hosts. Yeah. When I auditioned to be the ring announcer 3 years ago through an agency in New York, they had seen my stuff. They were like, "Do you want to apply for this?" I was like, "Hell yes!" It's a big agency too. Could have been a real awesome gig if I got it. I made a whole tape of it, and I made the mistake of saying at the end of the tape, "I've been a massive fan of pro wrestling for a long time, since the '80s, so I'm excited to be considered for this." And the who's the main guy that does the hiring there? I forget the guy's name.
Mark Carano, he's the head of talent relations. I don't know if that's your guy.
There's another name that he kept showing up in Total Divas. I forget the guy's name.
Canyon, is that the guy? Canyon Seaman.
It's kind of a nerdier guy. I forget the guy's name. Mark something. I don't know. But
Mark Carano
so maybe it was. But he sent back a letter to the agent. The agent sent it to me, and he said, "This is great. We're actually looking for younger talent." So I shouldn't have said 80s. And we're looking for talent and hosts who aren't addicted to our product. We actually prefer it if they're not addicted to pro wrestling or enjoy it, because they feel like if you do that, then you're going to have like pick favorites or choose sides, or you're going to try to imitate what's before. So they prefer people who are not that addicted to the product. So I guess so. That's
they didn't want you to be the second Howard Finkel. They wanted you to be the first John Rocha.
Yeah, right. Yes,
I get it. So I'll never work there.
Yeah, well, I don't know. We'll see. The world's a crazy place, that's for sure. As the match goes on, we're getting closer to the end, and you can tell the referee whispers into Eddie's ear, which is great. I love catching these things now. All right, wrap it up. You can tell he says something because right afterwards, Eddie gets pinned here. But this is a fantastic. It looked like Eddie was going to get this victory here, and then Ray does that move off the top rope. What is that move called, Aaron?
Well, Eddie crucifix bomb, or as you may know it if Scott Hall does it, the Razor's Edge.
Yeah.
But Rey Mysterio reverses it into a Hurricanrana with the roll up. It's now called the West Coast Pop, is what it's called. But back then in WCW, didn't really have a name. That was kind of something that was brought over when they were doing the 619, when it had a name and all that kind of stuff. So I guess you could call it the West Coast Pop, but Rey Mysterio Jr. did not do the West Coast Pop, so we'll call it a Hurricanrana with a roll up.
Sounds good to me.
And that gives him the victory and the Cruiserweight Championship. So.
Right. Oh yeah. So because was Eddie the champion
for another day, John?
Was it vacant or was Eddie the champion?
No, Eddie was the champion.
Okay,
Eddie was the champion. So Ray got to keep his mask. Eddie lost his title, but he did gain it back a month later. So there's that.
Was it at a pay-per-view or was it at a regular Nitro?
That was at a pay-per-view. Sorry, folks, I'm cracking another beer. There's a celebration, and I'll tell you why later. But sorry, I'm drinking beers on the job. But we can talk a little bit about the aftermath. Let's go ahead and go with that. So Ray would lose the Cruiserweight title a month later at the next pay-per-view. Then he would leave for WWE, the Independents, around 2001. He would end up in WWE in 2002.
Yeah.
He, of course, will become World Heavyweight Champion in 2006 after winning the Royal Rumble earlier that year. And, of course, I didn't put a lot more into this because Ray's story is still ongoing, so who knows what could happen between now and then. But he still competes to this day, of course, in WWE. He had stints with Lucha Underground, AAA, and other independents. He's the Grand Slam champion of WWE. He's held every title that he could at the time. He's not been Universal champion. Who gives a shit? But he's won every other title: tag team, Intercontinental, United States champion, Cruiserweight champion, WWE champion, World Heavyweight champion. He's been them all. So he's definitely a surefire Hall of Famer in my book. I mean, I don't know how you could even dispute that. Even the best thing about it was at the end of WCW, Ray wasn't wearing a mask. Right. And then when he came back to WWE, they're like, no, put that back on.
Yep.
Because we want to sell some merchandise.
It's iconic.
And he became one of the biggest merch sellers. Dude, I mean, he became one of the biggest merch sellers they ever had. Yeah. I mean, to the point where I have a Rey Mysterio mask. Once again, it's somewhere in storage, but I bought it a couple years ago, and it's awesome. So, I'm a Rey Mysterio mark. How could you not be?
Yeah, I agree with you. And his shirts, I mean, that's where you can say Ray has it over Eddie. Ray certainly sold more merch than Eddie. Eddie's shirts were fine. But like the Lie, Cheat, Steal shirt, I still see every once in a while, which is great. And of course the LWO. But Ray was what?
Latino Heat as well.
That's right. Latino Heat was another one that people still like. And that Scarface one with the black and white, which is a pretty awesome shirt. But Ray is always constantly coming out with these great designs for his shirts, and kind of like Randy Orton. Randy quietly has some of the best shirts ever in the history of wrestling. Quietly over the last 10 years, I would say Randy shirts have been exceptional. And if I had a lot of extra income and enjoyed wearing wrestling shirts around town, I would absolutely have bought a bunch more of Randy Orton's stuff because it comes in multiple colors, not just black, which is the standard wrestling color for any shirt. But yeah, Ray does this thing on the merch side for sure over Eddie. You can say that's a check in or a positive in his corner. So anyway, so what else goes on with Eddie wins the things, Ray wins what he wins, right? Did we finish that up already?
Well, I didn't talk about Eddie's side, but quickly get your super chats in so John can buy some Randy Orton shirts. Apparently, just get those in, guys. Yeah, but Eddie Guerrero, of course, Eddie would leave. Eddie would be one of those that left WCW before it closed. He left in 2000, debuting with Saturn, Dean Malenko, Chris Benoit as the Radicals. He was actually released in 2002. A lot of people don't remember this for his addiction to painkillers. He had a bad car wreck in 1999 where he broke his back, and he became, unfortunately, as so many people in the United States do, addicted to painkillers. Yeah. So WWE had to let him go in 2002, but he wasn't gone for too long, and he came back to win the WWE Tag Team Championships with his nephew Chavo and started a run initially as heels. But then Los Guerreros became so damn popular, man, with that Lie, Cheat, Steal, the Low Riders, all that stuff, dude. They became like, it reminds me of the New Day. Like the New Day started off as this team that they were supposed to be heels, and they came out and people just loved them. Yeah. So they quickly turned to babyface, and the New Day hasn't looked back ever since. They've, they're killer merch sellers, and that's what Los Guerreros was back then. I mean, they loved that, dude. Coming out with the low riders, they would cheat to win matches, but it was funny. It wasn't even heelish, just the way they would do it. And, Eddie said that that's some of the best times he ever had in the business was tagging with Chavo because, they're family, and you get to travel around the world with your family. So that's got to be pretty dope. Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. Yeah. And it was so great. Like normally that could have slid into, racist territory or uncomfortable, as we saw with Crime Time. You can absolutely go into that, or whoever was that wrote out the John Deere mowers, I forget those guys. That kind of stuff could easily have said, but the way they did it, and because it was Eddie and because it was to a lesser extent Chavo, the fans already loved them. So they went with them with this because the lowriders it wasn't meant to be like offensive, right? They were riding it as a kind of like, that makes us cool, because there is a whole lowrider culture, obviously, in Los Angeles, and within the Mexican culture, Chicano culture here. So it's a kind of a recognition of that, and also a respect of that. And so it really came through. And the Lie, Cheat, and Steal, whatever, man. It is what it is. I totally respected that. And I mean, if you're going to be heels, why not turn it into something? And they certainly turned it into something, and it was great to see. And when they turned face, it was even better because I feel like Eddie probably relished that even more, that he was able to turn that heel thing into a face thing overall with Chavo. Yeah, I'm looking in the chat here, and PRL18 got a shirt that we left out, the I'm Your Poppy shirt. Did we talk about that?
Oh,
Like,
no.
what a great
forget
shirt that was. Yeah.
Hold on. I got to look that one up. I'm Your Poppy shirt?
Eddie did have some great ones. The I'm Your Poppy. The Scarface one immediately comes to mind for me.
Yeah.
And, of course, the Latino Heat as well. But, yeah, we forgot about the I'm Your Poppy shirt. That was a good one. I like that one, too. I think that was the one he wore when he was doing the thing with China, maybe? Or maybe that was Latino Heat. I don't really remember.
No, the China was
one.
Latino Heat. The China was Latino Heat.
That's right. Okay. You're right.
Yeah, I see the I'm Your Poppy show. That's a big one.
You see it? How good is that? How good is that?
Jesus, I forgot about that one. All right. I'll give it up, Eddie. I apologize.
Let me finish this up real.
Yeah.
How dare you? Let me finish this up real quick. In January 2004, Eddie won a 15-man battle royal to become the #1 contender for Brock Lesnar's WWE Championship. And at No Way Out 2000. Battle from Brock Lesnar, probably their career. Eddie Guerrero defeated Kurt Angle at WrestleMania 20 to retain the championship, and of course celebrated in that iconic scene with his best friend Chris Benoit.
Yeah,
times changed immediately after that.
Yeah,
Mysterio and Eddie they would feud off and on, and they become tag team champions at one point. They would have a memorable feud fighting over the custody of Ray's son Dominic. We don't need to go into that. It was stupid.
It was
from jump. It was just stupid. It was a stupid idea from bad creative, to quote Chris Jericho. But and sadly, Eddie Guerrero passed away on November 13th of 2005 from acute heart failure.
Yeah.
A lot of people tend to believe that it was some sort of cocaine or drug overdose. It is not. It was a heart condition that ran in the family that ultimately took his life, which is very sad. And it happens to a lot of people. And the way that it was described on Dark Side of the Ring by Chavo made me cry, because I'd never heard that version of it with Eddie on the ground. It's hard to listen to. But yeah, we lost one of the greatest wrestlers of all time in 2005, and Eddie Guerrero, and wrestling's really never been the same since. Because could you imagine these kids on Tough Enough or whatever at the Performance Center, and your teacher's Eddie friggin' Guerrero?
Yeah.
Like, holy crap, dude. Talk about getting an education firsthand. But
so true,
man, one of the greatest ever we lost, and somebody that's really a detrimental loss to the business for sure.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you, man. Absolutely. And I think you're right. I think we've never filled that hole that Eddie left. I would look, I know people might get mad at me. I'd say the same thing about Benoit. I don't think we've filled that hole. Jericho has done a great job of carrying the legacy of those luchadors from the 90s in the WCW. But we've never filled those holes of Benoit and Eddie. They were so incredible in what they did. And, you talk about this, and it says something, right? You listed out on the notes, and you, of course, spoke about it on the show. So many Guerreros are wrestlers, that kind of like the Rock family, right? So many of them by adjacent, either cousin or nephew or whatever, or second cousin twice removed or whatever. They're all wrestlers, but there's something about the combination of everything that works for one. And Eddie is that one from the Guerrero clan. The Rock is that one from that clan. It's just for whatever reason, all the things line up for one member of that family, and it rises to the top. And you see that with Eddie. Eddie always put that. There's no way that all those other people didn't have the same skills as Eddie did in his family. It was just the way Eddie packaged it just works so much better because of his personality. It just was always there,
Yeah, I mean, you can't beat him, dude. I mean, you go in there, even the funny stories about Eddie, like when he got in an actual shoot fight with Rey Mysterio, or not Rey Mysterio, I'm sorry, with Kurt Angle.
Right.
I was looking at the chat there. Got in a shoot fight with an Olympic gold medalist.
Yeah.
And then when Kurt Angle took him down and beat him in the shoot fight, he said, "God, I'm so stupid." Just these great stories about how Eddie, and later on in life he found Jesus again.
Yeah. It's tragic.
Really, that's what turned his life around. A lot of people don't know about.
Yeah. There's a documentary.
Chris Jericho would be a guy that would start all of these. Go ahead.
No. You keep cutting in and out, Aaron. So I'm just trying to fill where you're cutting in and out. So what were you saying here about Jericho?
Well, Chris Jericho had started these prayer circles like before these matches. A lot of people don't know this. It was, Benoit, and it was Eddie, and it was Chavo, and these guys would sit around and pray.
Wow.
And they would do that kind of stuff. And it's just not talked about a lot because it's just a part of the business no one wants to talk about.
Oh, interesting. Well, I think there's a great documentary to be had for Eddie, maybe even a film. You know, if Paige can get a film, for the love of God, Eddie Guerrero should get a film as well, and a well done one, as good as Fighting with My Family was. There should be one about Eddie as well. I think he absolutely thoroughly deserves it, you know. So all right, any more Streamlabs or super chats that came through? Just one, and that was from PRL 18. Says the Poppy shirt was the Ray feud about his son. Oh, okay, all right, I'm your Poppy. That makes sense. That makes us all
right,
sense.
Right, yeah, you're right.
All right, let's move on to our, well, anyway, that's the match there. Now we're going to move on to our review of Dark Side of the Ring, the episode that happened last week, in anticipation of the episode that's dropping tomorrow night, I think, or tonight. Is it tonight that, as we're recording it, that it's dropping
tonight?
Okay,
yeah.
Okay, cool.
No, it was actually tomorrow. It was actually last night.
Oh, it was last night. All right, so I got something to watch after we're done here. But
Yeah.
It was Dr. D. David Schultz, the slap heard around the world with John Stossel, I think the guy's name was, from 2020. I remember everything about this, and I remember because I was a teen. I think it was a kid or early teens when this all went down with Dr. D. David Schultz. Let me tell you something. Dr. D. David Schultz was one of the most fearsome heels ever, because he looked like he could legitimately kick the shit out of you if he ever caught you anywhere. It wasn't like, because, you know, those fake heels. This guy was legitimately crazy when he was in the ring. And I forgot that he faced off against Hogan. I forgot that he had these like battles with other people. But this whole situation, the whole documentary, this episode rather, centers around the fact that he had been told by Vince McMahon, when this 2020 reporter was coming around, John Stossel, to, you know, kind of play up the heel aspect of it all, so that Stossel would be walk away from this thing intimidated and also not wanting to mess with pro wrestling, because, as many people know, in pro wrestling, when outside people make fun of it, there's legitimate anger amongst the people who are in it, because they spend so many hours trying to get good at this to entertain the fans and to hopefully be successful and make money. And at this time, this was right when the WWE, it was WWF at the time, was turning into this big profitable business. And John Stossel in 2020 wanted to kind of expose it, because, as he says in the episode, I hated the fact that people were paying money when it was all a lie. And this was before people knew it was fake or not fake for the most part, and before it had fully crossed over into the mainstream. Do you remember anything about this, or did you hear about this like afterwards?
I'm not going to front. I had no idea who Dr. D. David Schultz was before this.
Yeah.
I will say this. John Stossel is a little bitch.
No, he is.
And I think that, he's such a little bitch.
Absolutely.
And I hated him. This guy deserved to be kicked in the balls. He deserved to have his jaw broken by Dr. D.
Yeah.
This guy, like, if there ever was a little bitch, John Stossel was a little bitch.
Yeah, I'm not going to disagree with you, because he was going in there with the intention to expose something for his own ego, his own career, to try to crap on something, because he felt that he was above people who were doing pro wrestling, people who were running pro wrestling. He felt like he was above it. It's different if you're going in as a reporter to expose how they mistreat them on the healthcare side of things, or the union side of things, or that's different, right? Because I don't mind the John Oliver episode, but something that what Stossel did is intentional to destroy the entire business as a whole and to make fun of them. And that's where he's a little bitch. I agree.
It's sensationalist bullshit journalism. It's not even working hard for your job. It's just some sort of soap opera Kardashian bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't appreciate it. And the thing about Dr. D. David Schultz was he's told by Vince McMahon, hey, don't let this guy do it, as you said. And then he does it. And then he's essentially blackballed from professional wrestling.
Right.
After that, which is shocking, man. Like, I went back and watched on the network. I watched Dr. D versus Rocky Johnson, which was kind of fun. And then I watched him in a match against Hulk Hogan, and just the way that he worked, man. He was this guy that talked real tough, and like he was real mean to his wife and kids. They talk about that in the documentary. The actors, and he would shoot guns off in the studio, like just this crazy dude. But then when he got in the ring, he was like this little chicken. Like, he would run away from you. He would get tied up in the ropes so the ref would break it off. And I was like, dude, this guy is great. Like, I'm sitting here watching. I'm like, this guy's like one of my favorite wrestlers. I want to see everything that he does. And I'm watching these interview segments like he's doing with Vince. He's doing it with Lord Alfred Hayes, doing it with like Gorilla. And he just makes everybody uncomfortable. And he reminds me a lot of, and it stands as the reason why these dudes got along. It reminds me a lot of Roddy Piper.
Yeah.
And the way that this guy would talk and talk and talk, and he would pull you. He's like Roddy Piper mixed with Jake Roberts. Like he would pull you in, and you just couldn't take your eyes off of this dude because he looked like you said, he looked like a dude that would take you behind a Tennessee woodshed and beat the living hell out of you and leave you for dead.
Right.
Like for real. Like he was the real deal.
Yeah.
And it really was disheartening to hear about like how Hulk Hogan, I mean, I know, John, you're a stan, but Hulk Hogan really screwed this dude over.
Yeah.
According to him, but who knows?
Right.
That this whole Mr. T business that went on about, David Schultz getting into it with Mr. T.
Right.
And Hulk Hogan didn't take his back, and that ain't cool either, man. So
yeah,
I don't know what the legacy of Dr. D is. I didn't know about him before this. Maybe I'd heard about the slap, but I didn't know it was Dr. D. David Schultz. And I thought it was an awesome episode, though. I really liked this one. I've been kind of down on Dark Side of the Ring for the past few weeks, but I thought this episode was awesome.
I agree.
I really liked it. I like the Nino Bravo one too.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, bud. Yeah, I agree. And dude, it wasn't the first slap. It's the second slap. That's what really kind of got him into the trouble. I mean, the first slap you can kind of like toss off, right? But the second slap, when homie gets up and he just absolutely just sends him halfway down the hallway, you're just like, holy crap. And Dr. D makes a great point in the documentary as well. And look, yes, I'm a Hogan stan, but I also know Hogan is full of a lot of flaws and made a lot of mistakes in this business, in this career. So I'm never going to defend him when he's legitimately in the wrong. That thing he did on Belzer, I remember when that happened too. That was a video that was like put up on the newscasts and stuff, and it was a massive deal. And Dr. D is right to speak about the fact that that's a double standard, because Hogan was the guy. He wasn't going to fire Hogan. He wasn't going to fire his money-making machine. No way. But Dr. D, who was from a stable of heels, he could sacrifice him, and especially because Stossel was suing them. And as we saw recently in WWE, when money's on the line, they got no problem dropping wrestlers to save themselves. And so you saw this happen again in this situation. Dr. D, they distanced themselves from him. Vince didn't own up to it. And Dr. D explaining how Vince basically created this character and put him in and came up with these skits and these scenes to shoot, hiring actors to play his wife and his kids. And once again, Vince doesn't take responsibility for that kind of stuff because, it's just Vince. So you look at that situation. I mean, you can argue a little bit in the Schmodown. Christian does that because Christian creates storylines for us to act out or play in. He's the one that comes up with most of it. Yeah, people propose a million storylines, but he usually comes up with the ones that we play in the Schmodown. And in that way, I do see the comparisons and the similarities, because that whole idea of him sitting there with a fake wife and fake kids and shooting guns that aren't even his, all of that just to build up this idea of he's a heel. It's brilliant storytelling, but you also got to kind of protect the wrestler if you're the one that sent him out there and told him, don't let him make fun. I mean, and remember, this is the Vince McMahon that confronted Bob Costas and knocked that piece of paper or that board or the clipboard out of Costas's hand. So clearly he was doing Vince's bidding. It's just Vince thought it was better to cut ties with this guy and then create this idea that he was, uncontrollable in the back and what have you. So I don't know. Like you said, Aaron, his version of the truth may not be the right version of the truth, but there is some illuminating things that he talks about in this documentary about Vince and about being there at the time.
Well, the thing was, like, even with John Stossel later on, I can't get over this John Stossel guy. He's killing me. But, like, I'm reminded of the show Entourage. If you ever watch Entourage, there was a storyline with Ari and this old intern that he had.
Oh,
he
yeah.
slaps him in the face, and he says, "A bitch slap for a bitch."
You're right.
And that's what I think John Stossel got from Dr. D. David Schultz. A bitch slap for a bitch.
Right.
And the fact at the end, John Stossel, they said to him, like, what would you say to D. David Schultz if he was here in front of you? And he said, I would say F you.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, dude, like, do you really want this dude that lives in the backwoods of Tennessee or wherever you live to come and find you and beat the hell out of you now? Like,
yeah.
And then when John Stossel was like, yeah, I got paid like $200,000 and all my pain went away. Like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Like, I wanted to jump through the screen and kill this guy. Like, he reminded me of like Geraldo, like these sensationalist, like a-hole journalists. Like, I just wanted to murder this guy. And I felt so bad for Dr. Schultz because he could have been something really cool. He could have been one of these guys that, in the late 80s, early 90s was feuding with Hulk Hogan and making big money all around the world.
Yeah.
But it wasn't all for naught, because the dude was apparently an excellent bounty hunter, which was awesome to watch too.
Right? That was insane.
The original Bob the Bounty Hunter, dude. He was amazing.
Yeah.
I love that part of the documentary.
Yeah. I'd like to find those episodes and maybe watch them as a reality show, because I had no idea that was a real. And of course, on the heels of Dino Bravo sliding into what he did with the mob, you get this next week episode where you got Dr. D. David Schultz doing bounty hunting. So people had to make their livings in the 80s and 90s after they were let go from wrestling. Not all of them come in with a massively large contracts and merchandise and all that stuff. That's how it works. So I agree with you. That was fascinating to watch him as a bounty hunter. And he still seems like a jovial fella. Like he still seems like a cool dude to like talk to and hear stories of. And of course, he's all skinnier now and older now, but still seeing him back then, dude, it was scary. He was scary. And it could have been that people wanted him out because they were scared of him. That's also possible too,
Yeah, I actually would like to see him come back to like the autograph circuit. I think he would be welcome to do those kinds of things. I don't know if he did anything like that, but beforehand, but I think a lot of people would welcome him back. I mean, it's been long enough, and he's not going to work for the WWE anytime soon. So why not? I don't know if he has interest in that. I don't know if he has interest in the wrestling business, but some of those old pictures that he had and some of those old programs, it's like, dude, somebody needs to see these. They need to be in a museum. They need to be in a book. Give them to Jim Cornette, because apparently he has like a friggin' archive. Like, give him to Cornette, let him do something with him. But I hate to see wrestling history sitting in a box in a barn, man. I would love to see those photos, especially with a young Hulk Hogan. I would love to see those out in the universe for everybody to enjoy. So hopefully, he's not too. He didn't seem like a bitter guy. He said he wasn't.
Yeah, he seemed chill.
So maybe we'll just see him out on the autograph circuit sometime. I'd love to talk to him. I bet he'd be a great person to talk to.
Yeah. Maybe get the slap. How much would he pay?
No. Nope. Not going to do it. Nope.
Take the slap, Aaron, for God's sakes. Do it for the show.
If the Streamlads get up enough, I'll take a slap.
That's a good idea. We should do that. Raise a little money to get you slapped by David Schultz. Hell, I'd get slapped by David Schultz if the money's high enough. I got no problem with that. I respect that.
Down, he'll smack you right across the face.
That's right. Oh, maybe I should do that. I should.
There you go.
Get that ESPN. Never mind. Let it be at that. Kind of fun. Anyway, fun episode. Really enjoyable. Well, what's the one that's out now? What's the subject?
The history of the UWF. That's the new one. So I'm not really familiar with that either. So
neither am I.
I'd be interested to see what that's all about.
Okay, all right, that'll be fun to explore as well. All right, Aaron, you said you had an announcement. Let's wrap up here. We got about 2 minutes left in the show. You got an announcement? What's your announcement?
Oh, my wife and I bought a house. That's the announcement. I talked about it a few weeks ago. Yeah. So if you live in the Deltona area of Florida, and you want to come out by the pool and watch some wrestling, drink some beers, let's do it. It'll be fun. So yeah, I know like my internet's been spotty this episode. I've been kind of cutting in and out, so I'm sorry about that. We got some moving pains. Internet's been throttled. Like, it's just, you're gonna have to bear with me for a couple more, like maybe 3 more weeks while we, get transitioned into the move. I got a new podcast setup coming up. I've already been actually working on the blueprints for it. I'm ready to go. So we're gonna, not real blueprints, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Trying to negotiate with the wife if I'm allowed to put things where. So, which is always a negotiation. But anyway, yeah. So the house is coming. It's going to be awesome. So that's what I'm excited about. That's why I'm drinking beers. She's not here. She's out of town. So I'm drinking all the beers I can.
Congratulations, my lady, too. She's in San Diego for the week, so I get to hang out today. But this is all I'm allowed. This room, as you could tell, where my hands, maybe about a foot on either side of the hands, this is what I'm allowed in here to create. So it's a nice little mini studio, and it's shut off from everything else. So it's worked out for us. And she has the bigger studio on the way to the other side of the apartment, the place. So she's fine. Yeah, as you do. Exactly. But shout out to you, Aaron. Congratulations on getting that house. I'm excited to see once it all comes into gets all assembled and everything gets set up to start to broadcast from there as well with you. So a lot of fun, my man. All right, where can they find you and everything that you're doing?
You can find me on Twitter at @OnlyAaronTurner, where you will see me not get into arguments like Ryan Satin and Dave Meltzer do on a weekly basis. Shout out to those guys. Love Ryan. Don't really care for Dave.
Yeah.
And hopefully, Rocha, we kind of started this out of nowhere, but maybe somewhere down the road on an episode of Strong Style, we may be talking to the world's heavyweight champion, Nick Aldis, the NWA World Heavyweight Champion. Let's keep the fingers crossed, guys. Like, go tweet at Nick Aldis. He seemed interested. He liked the tweets. Yeah, and we were talking about it. So maybe somewhere down the road we can talk to the World's Heavyweight Champion. That would be phenomenal. Love the guy.
Maybe friend of the show, Chris Burns, will get us people like that. So that would be a lot of fun. Absolutely. Certainly a blast there. Don't go to Aaron's house until the restrictions are lifted, I think. So,
please, God, don't. Yeah. You have to stay with me for 2 weeks in isolation. And, my wife may not like that. She may not know you, and it's fine. But
exactly, it's not the positive.
Yeah. Maybe next time WrestleMania rolls around, because it's in LA, I'm not going to that. So if you guys would come over, maybe we'll hook something up. But yeah, not right now, unless you got a mask and a hazmat suit, and then sure.
And then maybe. Yeah, there you go. All right. Well, thanks everybody for watching this episode live of Strong Style. We broke down the Eddie Guerrero versus Rey Mysterio Jr. mask match from WCW's Halloween and Havoc in 1997. We also did a review of Dark Side of the Ring, Dr. D. David Schultz. So some of you are joining us late, you can go back and rewatch us talking about both of those things here on this episode. We might still do a Friday episode. I think Aaron and I are figuring that out. We're going to do a news or whatever on the Friday episode, but we might still do it. The calendar's a little bit free on Friday, so hopefully we can slide one in there and have a little fun live, and maybe you all can join us again for another live episode of Strong Style there as well. Maybe we'll review the Dark Side of the Ring as well, the UWF one, as a fun lark for us. Follow me at The Rocha Says on Twitter and on Instagram. Please, subscribe to the channel as well, the Outlaw Nation channel, as I keep going. More and more content, pro wrestling, movies, sports, entertainment, TV. It's all here on the Outlaw Nation channel. Reviews are going to be coming really soon, and trailer reactions, I suppose, down the road at some point. Although, do people still love trailer reactions? I don't even know.
Do they have trailers anymore?
Yeah, right. Good question. Do we have trailers anymore? All of that. So follow me there at The Rocha Says, subscribe. And then, of course, if you are watching this and you want to go back and maybe listen to some of the previous episodes, not necessarily watch some of the previous episodes of Strong Style, you can go and subscribe to the Outlaw Nation Podcast Network, where we have every single episode of Strong Style on there for you to listen to and enjoy from us. So thank you so much. And, we will talk to you next time on another brand new live episode of Strong Style.
Salut.